So I am going to call to order the Wilmington School Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. If you will all join me in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we jump into the meat of our agenda, I just want to acknowledge that it's a bit of a hefty agenda this evening. So we're going to try to be as efficient as we can, but every item that we have on our agenda this evening certainly deserves our full attention. So just bear with us. If we do find we need a bio break at some point, please somebody give us the sign, okay? All right, for our first item, I think we have a presentation from our high school DECA club. If you'd like to join us right down here, we're going to get close to Allie. Maybe she can come up.
So, good evening. We'll start by just introducing ourselves. So, I'm Joe Wilson. I'm a senior here.
I'm Joe Consorti. I'm also a senior here.
I'm Troy Rixtons. I am also a senior here.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about Wilmington DECA today. I know some of the committee members have heard presentations on Wilmington DECA before in the past years. I'll start off by giving just a little overview of what DECA actually is. DECA used to stand for Distributive Education Clubs of America. What the club is focused on here at the high school is preparing students to enter the business world in marketing, finance, hospitality and tourism, entrepreneurship, and communications. This club is unlike any other club that we have at the high school because it is a mixture of like life skills, vocational, and just general better practices when speaking in public, like in a forum such as this, job interviews, pretty much anything. Do you have anything you want to add on?
Yeah, absolutely. So DECA is solely comprised of, as Joe said, those categories. We specialize in helping students, solve problems with critical thinking and also speak in front of audiences such as this. If you want to add anything.
So basically the bulk of what we do is we have different competitions at various levels. So there's districts, states, and nationals. So we already had our districts, and just last week we had our states competition where we did fantastic. This is the biggest group we're ever taken to the nationals and states. So, Joe, do you want to talk more about what we do?
Sure, yeah. So as Troy was mentioning, we have our 3 competitions. That's only one part of DECA. That's the competitive aspect. There's a whole nother side to DECA, and that's leadership. It's comprised of what's called an Emerging Leader Summit. There's a power trip and leadership academies. So us 3 had the opportunity last year to attend an Emerging Leader Summit in Chicago, Illinois. Mrs. Broussard was present for the trip. During that conference, we had the opportunity to meet with kids from all around the country. These kids have just as much experience in this club as us. We got to sit at a table with them, problem solve, talk. We had many opportunities to go around and ask other chapters, how do you run your successful DECA chapters? Us, relatively speaking, on the scale of DECA, we're kind of a middle of the road chapter, about 100 members to start off the year. There are chapters all throughout the world in the United States, one of the biggest being in Toronto. They have an astronomical amount, and they bring an astronomical amount of people to nationals every year. So ELS really gave us an opportunity to go around and network with other business professionals, other students in DECA, other students of small chapters just starting out, middle of the road chapters like us, big chapters that have been doing it for 50, 60 years that are bringing hundreds of kids to these national competitions. And we had the opportunity to bring back points with us to try to change how we run our club here. And us 3 make up the competition prep board for DECA, and I can let the guys say some words on it, but we are very proud after our ELS experience, because as we said, this is the biggest chapter, or the biggest group we've ever brought to nationals, at least in my 4 years, and I'm sure in your time as well, this is the biggest we've ever brought.
Yeah, so just to build off of what Joe said, there are a multitude of conferences we attend to bolster our leadership capabilities. So ELS was one of them, the Emerging Leaders Summit over in Chicago. That was a tremendous help, just getting to know some of the other people in other chapters who've developed really effective methods of running their chapters and kind of adopting them and retrofitting them to Wilmington. So that's worked out tremendously. As Joe said earlier, we have the biggest representation. We also have the Fall State Leadership Conference, so every leader from Massachusetts heads to a hotel for the morning. I believe it was until 2 or 3, but regardless, we learned just as much as we did at ELS, a lot of these pertinent skills that we did take back in fundraising, competition prep, how to conduct yourself in a business scenario, all of these different things that we take back to our chapter to improve overall. If Troy wants to add a little bit more.
Yeah, so when we were in Chicago, we sat down with like some of the more successful chapters and kind of saw like what they did to get their students ready, and we took a lot of the aspects back. So like we would do icebreaker competitions, so we would have like large rock, paper, scissor competitions just to get everyone warmed up and stuff. We did one activity where we brought a kid up and had him stand on a chair, and everyone would clap for him and just show him like what it was like to feel like a winner at nationals or districts or wherever, just because it's an incredible feeling that we want to share with people who don't get to experience it really.
What this club brings to us, I know myself personally, and I'm sure everybody else on the leadership board, a tremendous opportunity to go and network, like I said before, with people from all around the country. In Chicago, I heard different leadership styles and different techniques that everyone uses in their own chapters that I personally never would have thought to use. I never even thought it was a possibility. Like the icebreakers they were saying, it happened to work out tremendously for us at the start of our workshops that we ran. As students bringing back our DECA experience to Wilmington, we ran workshops that were open to DECA students and anybody else in the school, grades 9 to 12, who were wanting to explore the possibility of improving in their public speaking skills, improving in their interviewing skills, and presentation skills. So we held workshops open to everybody in this room a few times during the year, during the school day, and we would basically sit down in like an interview style, and we would have them talk. We'd write down notes, and we'd go over what they could improve. We'd go over what they did well. And a bunch of students found it beneficial to come and gain experience from people that have experienced it themselves, and also that have went to these sort of conferences to learn how to improve themselves, and not only improve themselves, but teach it to others.
Yeah, so some of the other stuff we did during our competition prep meetings, as we called them, us as a student body led them entirely on our own. So what we did, we had them sit down, we had various activities such as sell me this random item, which, as absurd as it may seem, it does really, really help in a competition setting, but also in a business setting. When you're asked to sell certain things, you're in a tense scenario. Being able to resolve those is a very, very important skill you can have. We would also, as Joe said, have them speak with us one-on-one, various business scenarios, teach them how to dress for success, so proper attire, depending on what scenario you are partaking in, and also just general etiquette. Those are a lot of the values that we instilled in all of our members and anybody who is interested. So another thing just to take away from DECA, regardless of the field you're going into, I'm not going into business personally, however, it has been a tremendous, tremendous help because not only does it teach you about all these different interesting fields, but it also teaches you these very, very important key aspects of life, such as communicating, public speaking, and problem solving that you simply wouldn't get anywhere else.
I think like one of the coolest things for me personally, like being a judge for these students, is we would give them prompts and they would take like half an hour to work on them. Then they would come and like the first few sessions they'd sit down and speak for maybe 2 minutes. And as like each session went by, like maybe a month later, they would be speaking for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it was just like incredible watching their progress and just helping them through it. And I think it helped them a lot, and that's why I think we got the most amount ever that we brought to states this year. So it was just really cool for us to experience that and see what would, like our impact on the students.
As Troy was saying, DECA truly is a club for everybody. Myself included, I'm actually not going into business either, not even anywhere close to it, studying in college. But I learned valuable skills through my experience at DECA, not only in public speaking, like I am now, presenting, dressing for success, overall attitude towards interviews and towards speaking like this. And all the members, freshmen to seniors, take away something. Whether they may think they don't, or they may think it's not for them. They think they may not be good at it. Everyone can learn from DECA, and for the most part, in our leadership board and across the board in our whole club, everyone has.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as Joe said, everybody derives something that they adhere to in their everyday lives, be it small or major. In Troy, in my cases, we were very introverted. Troy, not so much, but 3 years ago, you would not see me speaking in front of a board of this caliber. And once again, thank you guys for inviting us here. We're tremendously grateful for that. But as Joe said, regardless of the field you're going into, it's tremendously helpful for not only us, but the students as well. And that's why we're so passionate about DECA.
Absolutely. I just want to add one last comment. It's definitely been like the most impactful experience for me in all of high school. It's just changed my life, honestly. So that's about it for me.
I believe that's about it for me too.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about your recent success this weekend?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned earlier, we have our district's competition, which takes place in December, and then states takes place the first weekend of March. December, we are one of the biggest chapters in our district in Massachusetts, so we came away from districts with like an astronomical amount, something we've never seen in our 4 years of running this club. We moved on to states with 49, I believe it was 49 people we moved on with, which is the highest amount we've ever seen. In states, we had 5 people move on through competition, Joe and Troy included. We had 3 people actually move on through state-only events. So Mass DECA sponsors a few events, such as a pin design, a picture competition, a t-shirt design. We had 3 people move on to Orlando for winning the pin design. Myself, Michael Shampoo, won the pin design, and Joe and Troy actually won the picture with the help of 2 other DECA members in our grade. So we also earned 9 spots to a leadership academy, which a leadership academy is a little different from competition. Basically, you put a whole group of people that have never seen each other in a whole huge conference center together. And at first it's like, go make friends. So it's like, it pushes you out of your comfort zone and allows you to meet new people and talk to new people and gain a valuable insight on how things operate in a different area of the country. So we had a total of 17 students move on from this year's state conference, which is the highest number that we have seen, at least in our 4 years.
Yeah, by far.
By far,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
I think the most, was it 7 or 6? I know it was around 7 or 8 within that realm.
The most in our tenure here was 7 that we had move on.
Yeah, so this is nearly 10 more, which is a tremendous success, which is 100% attributed to all of the leadership of conferences we've attended. Just being able to network with these other individuals from across the country, learn what they've done that's successful, and pass that on to our members.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I'll let you sit down, but before we excuse you, we do have one item on our consent agenda, and if the committee is amenable, I thought it might be appropriate just to pull it out of order since they are here, and Ms. Dunlop, their advisor, is also here. We have been asked to approve an out-of-state field trip so that our Wilmington High School DECA Club can travel to Orlando for ICDC. Sometimes I reverse those, okay. And this is the national level conference. Everybody have it in your packets? Okay. Any questions for Ms. Dunlop or the gentlemen that are here? Mrs. Burns?
How do you raise funds to do all these, especially the nationals? Is it do fundraising, or
Yeah, so-
is it a little bit of both, or?
Like, we're the competition prep committee. We also have a fundraising committee
Okay.
who's mostly in charge of that. So one of the big fundraisers we did was we partnered with a company called SnapRaise, where they sent out emails kind of just for us. And we raised, $9,000 from that?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and within a month too, so,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Good for
We
you.
also hold the restaurant fundraisers, so, your typical Chipotle night to raise funds for the school, we did that through DECA. We do a multitude of those in conjunction with our Snap Raise and our larger fundraisers. In the past, we've done a dodgeball tournament, I know, that's been very successful for us, so there are a multitude of ways which we fundraise.
Wonderful.
We've also partnered with the School to Business partnership here in Wilmington as well in the past, and they've always been so welcoming to our chapter, which is amazing. We've also reached out to local businesses in town through letters. asking for donations to local businesses, so that way we can get out into the community and people can recognize what Wilmington DECA means and recognize us, and we can get in touch with the local town's businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Well, we've got
I have one question about fundraising. Does the fundraising offset the complete cost? Like, how does that work? Do we use all that fundraising money to offset the cost for each individual, or does it not work like that?
It does. The fundraising that we do goes towards offsetting the costs for each individual. We use those funds to sponsor all of our trips. So sending students to districts, sending students to states, sending students to the Nationals Conference. It's also used to pay for some of like the DECA registration fees, national registration fees, because there's a national DECA and a Massachusetts state DECA, which both require registration fees. So that fundraising money is used to offset the cost for the students.
Thank you.
I see no further discussion. Would somebody like to offer up a motion? Mrs. Burns, is there a second? I saw multiple hands with you, Mrs.
Very
Newhouse. Okay, all those in favor of approving the WHS DECA trip to Orlando? That looks like unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
very
thank
much.
you for your presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for having us tonight.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
Thanks
Have a
for
nice
coming. Okay, so next we're going to jump into the rest of our consent agenda. The first item being an approval of minutes from our February 13th regular session. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes, please? Mrs. Bryson, seconded by Mr. Ragsdale. All those in favor? Great. That looked like unanimous to me. And then the next item, approval of the Wilmington Educational Foundation grant for the 2019 STEM Fair in the amount of $1,500. Mr. Ruggiero, does anybody want to make a comment on, is there any further information we need to know about this donation?
I don't believe it.
Don't believe so. Okay, would somebody like to offer to make a motion to approve, please? Mrs. Burns, thank you, seconded by Mr. Bjork. All those in favor of accepting the WEF grant? That looks like unanimous to me. Okay. And then moving on to our warrants. I'll try to go slow, Tristan. We've got, let's see, I think I can I'll take all of these under item D up through payroll, and then we'll do payroll separate. I've got G421, G422, G423, R229, 230, 231, the locals 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, and 70, and then food service 23, 24, 25, and 26. I'll take a motion to approve those warrants, please. Mrs. Bryson, thank you, seconded by Mr. Talbot. All those in favor? That looks like unanimous to me. Thank you. We've got a couple of payroll warrants here. We've got week ending February 27th, 2019, and March 13th, 2019. Motion to approve, Mr. Bjork. Thank you. Seconded, Mrs. Newhouse. All those in favor? Looks like unanimous on that one. And then we've got the circuit breaker warrants, CB 16, 17, 18. Take a motion to approve, Mr. Talbot. Thank you. Mr. Ragsdale, seconded. All of those in favor? Thank you. We've got 2 abstentions, Mrs. Burns and Mr. Bjork. And then finally, we have the SPED warrants, SPED 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36. Motion to approve, Mrs. Bryson. Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Ragsdale. Thank you. All those in favor? And we've got 3 abstentions on that, Mrs. Newhouse, Mr. Bjork, and Mrs. Burns. I think we did the consent agenda. Okay. All right, and our next item of business is we're going to hear from our student representative.
Hi. So over the weekend, as Joe, and Troy said, the Wilmington High School's DECA chapter competed in their state competition, and other students who placed, aside from Joe and Troy, who received second in their category, were Samantha Burke receiving 4th place with an independent business plan. Sam Juergens, a sophomore, received 2nd place. Andrew Days also received 2nd place, and Brian Dankees placed in the top 10. And impressively, Anae Gandhi, a freshman, placed in the top 10. He was one of two freshmen competing in the competition. Like they said, 17 students total will travel to the international competition in Orlando in April. Last year, Wilmington only brought 4 students to ICDC, so it's a big change for them. Over the weekend, several juniors participated in the SATs on Saturday and are now anticipating their results. Sophomores have English and MCAS coming up this month as well. And junior prom is approaching quickly. April 5th is way closer than it seems. This Friday, the WHS is hosting its annual talent show at 7 in the Joanne Benton Auditorium. The talent show is organized by Ms. Hooper and the freshman class officers. Several students have also been signing up to participate in the blood drive on April 4th, which was coordinated by students Stella Andrade, Joshua Raynon, Angelica Loshak, and Donalisa Alphonse, along with the WHS nurses.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you always for your report. We appreciate about hearing the ongoings at the high school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Dr. Brand, I know you have a few items for us under your superintendent's report.
I do, and thank you, everyone. Good evening. There are 4 items listed under the agenda. I'll actually speak to 5. But we'll start with the first item, the behavioral health fair. You'll hear a little bit more about this later this evening with the presentation, but in the packet, and to bring to the attention of the community, there is a great flyer that does promote the upcoming behavioral health fair. As I've come to learn, it's becoming an annual event and much look forward to, and a terrific community outreach effort. Thursday, March the 28th, starting at 5 o'clock through until 8 o'clock, here at the Wilmington High School. There are a number of different vendors that will be here, and we'll have displays set up, but there are 2 specific events just to take this opportunity to draw attention to. The first starts at 6 o'clock, 6 till 7 specifically, in the Joanne Benton Auditorium. An act relative to bullying, how this legislation impacts our schools. That'll be the focal point of that discussion. And then following that at 7 o'clock through until 8 o'clock, what parents need to know about e-cigarettes and vaping products. So 2 very important, timely, and very relevant presentations. Again, the Behavioral Health Fair, Thursday, March the 28th. Also included in your packet for your information is the job description for the Director of Technology and Digital Learning. This, as you'll recall, was part of the budget proposal for fiscal year 2019-2020, and that was to bring back to the district the position, the leadership position, an important one for sure at that oversees technology. Most of the elements here resemble what was in place from a job description standpoint previously. I do, though, wish to just take the opportunity to point out one specific area of revision, and that's the identification of digital learning as a focal point. Technology in schools, of course, they're inseparable, as they should be. It's an essential component to support teaching and learning in contemporary times. And it's more, though, than just making sure that Wi-Fi is in place and that our networks are operating. There has to be a focal point, I believe, on learning and supporting learning in that context, and it's an effort here to refresh this job description and attend to those responsibilities. So it's here for informational, but I will share with you that we have put forth the posting. It's out there now, and I'll keep you updated as the search progresses over the course of the coming weeks. Item C, the NEASC study cost update. This is, you'll find a memo in your packet that was something that, as you recall, you received information about from Ms. Peters around the NEASC accreditation, and there were some questions by members of the committee specific to the financial affairs related to the visit. This information that's outlined in the memo comes specifically from the accreditation handbook that NEASC provides to schools, and these are estimates, but I think it's fair to assume that they're fairly close to with some experience that NEASC has in terms of what to plan for. And I won't go through them all, but you can see an overview of the various stages. It's important to note that this is not for simply one fiscal year, but rather does span the entire accreditation process. And the one noted exception there is the annual dues or fees, for being a member of NEASC, which are outlined separately there. And finally, item D, not finally, sorry, second last item, item D, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, a copy of the letter that recently has gone out. I'll just make one noted correction that the survey will be taking place on March 14th, and that is as a result of the March 4th snow day, so things had to be adjusted slightly. But YRBS, as we often refer to it as, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. We are, again, embarking upon seeking to collect data that will be helpful to inform our understanding around some of the complex and important issues for students. This is I'll use the term partnership event in that many districts, I think most in the Middlesex community, certainly partner with this effort, and the data that will be forthcoming will certainly provide us with a sense not just of the snapshot of the Wilmington students, but also in a comparative sense, others in the nearby area. So a copy of that letter is for your information as well. And finally, not in the packet, but certainly something that has been disseminated now. I just want to take the opportunity and update the community as a whole in terms of the middle school principal search. That announcement has been pushed out in a variety of different venues, but we have brought that search to a close. Very briefly, the opportunity to introduce Mr. Alexander Phillips as the next principal of the Wilmington Middle School, effective July 1st, 2019. As outlined in the announcement, some more specifics about his experience in education, public education, which spans over 20 years, collectively both in Massachusetts and Illinois. Currently, Mr. Phillips is the principal of the Suter Montessori Magnet Elementary School in Chicago, Chicago Public Schools, and he has served there as the principal since 2012. A little bit more information about the process that was thorough, that included site visits both here to Wilmington as well as to respectively the home sites of our three finalists. I want to take the opportunity to thank the members of the search committee. They put in an awful lot of time, an awful lot of hours as part of that process. I'd also like to just take this opportunity, as also outlined in the memo, to give thanks again to Mr. Kevin Welch. As you all know far better than I, Mr. Welch has served in the interim principal role for approximately the last year and a half, during, as I've also come to learn, a time of some great challenges at the middle school. And thank you to Mr. Welch for his leadership in stepping forward to help support the school and the middle school community during these last number of months. I know that the community as a whole and the staff throughout the district have appreciated his support, his guidance, and his unwavering efforts to help guide the school through this time of transition. And so I thank him greatly for his efforts. And on all of that, I'm happy to take any questions if you have any about any of those items.
Mrs. Burns?
I have just a couple. I just wanted to go back to the behavioral fair. That it takes place at the high school, not the middle school. I don't know if last year happened at the high school, but I wanted to reiterate that, along with that childcare will also be provided in this room for any parents who wish to attend, especially the meetings of which you spoke about. So that's just one aspect I just wanted to highlight. Childcare will be provided. The other aspect is I just wanted to make a brief comment with regards to the NASAC, I'm not saying it right, the acronyms.
Yes.
Thank you. My translator here, am I right? I have to say, I am very much disappointed with regards to the overhead, with regards to getting a credit. I think it's necessary and to move on, but we're incurring almost $10,000 worth of cost. I could see that I would expect some of this to come out of the dues that we pay yearly, and for it to impact districts with almost an additional $10,000 to its budgets. I know it's a cost of doing business and ensuring that our schools, meet those standards, but in this day and age when we're scrounging for more public monies, and I say this in a very general overtone, I think it's almost, let's just say I'm disappointed. I don't want to say what I really think, but very just disappointed that this, at the high level of cost, as much as it's, needed in order to, accredit our schools. I'm just disappointed at the level, the $10,000 cost. When they could capture it in their own business, I would say it that way, but.
Mr. Ragsdale.
I just want to comment that on the Director of Technology job posting, that I'm glad that we're putting that focus on the digital learning aspect of it, because that's the purpose of having technology in schools, to enhance learning. And it should be clear to, everyone interested in the position that this is an education position and not merely an IT or infrastructure position. This is someone that we expect to, to be affecting the education of all our students.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bryson.
Going back to the NEAS commitment, the collaborative conference and the seminars, is that for us, or is that for the people we're bringing in? I guess I was thinking that was actually, seminars were something that maybe we were going to, not we, but Wilmington personnel might be attending. Is that not accurate? I'm sorry.
It is Wilmington personnel, but if I may, I'll ask Ms. Peters maybe to speak to that if you're able.
The collaborative conference is for them to visit us and meet with different stakeholders. They will be meeting with administrators, parents, students, and school committee members. You will be invited on the day. I don't have the time yet because they haven't given us the schedule. They will be meeting with central office administration, and they will also be observing classes over those 2 days. It's really a day and a half. But
So that's separate from the visit?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's new to the process
Okay.
as well.
Go ahead.
So in the past, it's been the top 2 items, and then the accreditation visit wasn't a part of it, is that correct?
The accreditation visit is actually in 2021.
Yeah.
And that's after we have drafted an improvement plan and have met the goals of the improvement plan, and then they just come and evaluate that.
Thanks. Any other questions regarding the items that Dr. Brand presented? Okay. Mr. Ragsdale, sorry.
I'd just like to quickly re-echo what Dr. Brand said about our gratitude to Kevin Welch for the work that he's done over the last couple of years as the middle school in a really tricky and difficult situation, and stepping up into that leadership role and guiding that school over the past couple of years. I think that we really do owe him a lot of gratitude for the stability that he was able to give during that period.
Great, thank you. So we do have one item under old business, and that's the fiscal year 20 school year calendar. Dr. Brand, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure. So you obviously will recall that we've had some discussion, some very good discussion around, I think, around the proposed school calendar for next year. Again, certainly a responsibility of committees in Massachusetts to approve. So just to highlight sort of where we have been, you recall back to the survey data that's been collected, and again, this is for any member of the community as well who may be sort of just tuning in. There is some survey data that's out there that was, I think, tremendously helpful to sort of guide and shape thinking about the future calendars, not just for fiscal year 20, but also beyond. This is a proposal coming back to you for your consideration that tries to capture some of the general things. There are not many in totality, but there are a couple of changes from our current calendar. First off, just setting the context again, the request before you to consider adding some degree of early release time at the very beginning of the school year. And as I've spoken to before, the purpose for that would be to provide, quite frankly, some additional time for teachers to prepare for the launch of the school year. As you know, we have one full day contractually before school starts. The idea or the notion of adding a half-day early release would provide just a little bit more time for teachers to attend to, in particular, areas such as special education, 504 plans, and other things. The other things we've talked about based upon the feedback include continuing to have the day before Labor Day as a non-school day, that school would not be in session. It would be vacation day specifically. Also emerging from the data is consideration for moving from where we have been recently, and that is basically a half day prior to Thanksgiving, and making that a non-school day. And so this calendar reflects that as well too. And I think that really captures most everything. The CIT, as we call them, or Curriculum Improvement Time, those days have not been expanded in this calendar. They remain the consistent number, as is the case for the other various early release or early dismissal days for conferences and the like. And so this was an effort to try and capture that all together and come back for your consideration and ultimately approval.
Any questions or comments from committee members? Mr. Ragsdale.
So the memo in front of the schedule talks about having one CIT day and 2 full days during the first week. But it appears that the first that first day on the 27th is an early release day, but not a CIT day. And my understanding is that the CIT days have the staff for a longer period of time.
That's right.
So I was wondering if you can speak to that.
Yeah, and thank you. And that does need to be amended and corrected, and I think it is important. Language or terminology is important here. So in this district, CIT days have a different meaning in not just the fact that students leave school early, a half day of instruction, but also that based upon the contractual agreement, staff do stay one extra hour, and that, on balance, may not seem like a lot, but as I've come to learn, actually is. In that, one of the challenges in the district that we have is with so many schools spread out over the geographical area that we do, the opportunity to bring together like teachers, for example, at the 3rd grade, all of our 3rd grade teachers, is challenging because our schedules don't align and there's travel time and everything else. So that extra hour of time actually is quite significant in providing professional development time to bring together all 3rd grade teachers, as an example, or all elementary teachers. So that is the correction there is the total number of CIT days did not change in this proposal from our current calendar. The effort ultimately here is not identified as a CIT day, but with your support to add an early release day or an early dismissal day to that Tuesday, August the 27th. Teachers would stay in their schools, and we'd still have, more recently, we've had the CIT day the last week, generally speaking, the last week in September. So I apologize for that confusion. That's the distinction there.
And is there a reason to prefer doing it as an early release day instead of a CIT day?
So simply that the value is not sought to be pulling together teachers across district on that day, the very first day of school, but rather to provide, again, additional time without student responsibilities to attend to some of the other school startup tasks, if you will, that I mentioned earlier. So, again, I apologize for that confusion, perhaps.
Any other comments or questions from the committee?
I just have one
Mrs.
question that
Bryson.
I feel like I didn't really ask because we were focused so much on that first week. The CIT days are on Wednesdays. And how are they chosen? Is it sort of random? Because I can't see a pattern, so I'm just trying to figure out. And a couple of parents have asked me about the switch from the Friday to the Wednesday. So it hadn't really come up much because I think people were focused on that
Sure.
half-day business, but could you address that?
I can. Thank you for the question, and I'd welcome members of my team if I miss anything to add to it. So we did have meaning the district leadership team, inclusive of central office leadership as well as principals. We had some discussion about this some time ago. it seemed like that anecdotally, perhaps if not anything else, that having a consistent day of the week for CIT days is helpful for families. There's some downside in terms of some students missing, at the elementary level in particular, certain activities that might take place on that afternoon if we held a steady day for the calendar. But rotating the days throughout the week for childcare and such it sounds like that could be problematic, which seemed understandable. In addition to that, at least this year, I'm not sure historically, with the days on Fridays, we do have some challenges with attendance. I think that would be fair to say, both sometimes from students and sometimes from staff. And so the thought to move it to a different day of the week is felt to be advantageous. Am I missing anything from our discussion?
Thank you.
Mr. Talbot?
Question about the day before Thanksgiving. Did we say yes to that?
It was from the survey data, that it was very clear people were preferring a full day off versus the half day. And I think one thing that we have seen, and certainly our leadership team can speak on this, my perception is that our attendance the day before Thanksgiving, if it's just a half day, is probably not what we might like it to be, as opposed to just offering a full day. No, it's a big travel day for people.
If I can just add,
Sure.
it's more than a perception.
I was trying to be.
That didn't sound very good, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that the way that came out. We did capture data through our tracking system, and in fact, this year, the two days of the worst student attendance, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the Friday before the winter break. I think that the Super Bowl parade may have eclipsed those. That's a different matter we'll address later. But so indeed, it is problematic, and the data certainly speaks to the fact that we have an awful lot of students who are not in attendance on those days.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, so we're being asked this evening to consider accepting this proposal as it is. So we can certainly take a vote this evening whether or not to accept this proposal as it is. I know that the last time we discussed this, we did have some members of the public wishing to speak on it. If the committee is amenable, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak again or have the opportunity before we take a vote or make a motion, I'm open to that. No. Okay.
I see you thinking.
I just, Mr. Ragsdale.
Just one other thing that I wrote down here, I forgot to ask about.
Okay.
Did we, because there was some discussion in our prior meetings about CARES running during the half-days, and so have we confirmed that first early release day, that CARES would be available in the afternoon?
So Ms.
I think there might be
Sherry's
someone
here,
here.
but I
Maybe
believe,
somebody
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what we did leave it as is such that if a family was a CARES, had signed up or registered for CARES on what would be Tuesday, indeed, that the CARES program would be operating, correct? Right. So yes, yes.
Okay. Any other takers from the audience before we move on? Okay. Would somebody like to offer up a motion to accept the proposed 2019-2020 school year calendar? I can't believe I'm saying that.
Move to accept the school calendar.
Mr. Ragsdale on the first, Mrs. Bryson on the second. All those in favor? That looks like that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this gives us a nice segue, because the
does.
first item under new business this evening is we're going to have a spotlight presentation on our CARES program. Dr. Brand, would you like to make the introduction, please?
Sure, I will, thank you. Again, consistent with some of the efforts over the course of this year to provide the school committee and, of course, equally important, the community with some insight in terms of the many terrific programs that our district offers. We have a couple of those this evening as it relates specifically also to some of the other items, but we've tried to get Ms. Parker here on a couple of different occasions, and finally we've been able to make that happen. One of the things that I have come to learn, one of the many great things that I've come to learn about this district certainly is the tremendous support, appreciation, and gratitude that comes with so many of our families and their respective involvements in this program. You've heard a little bit about the usership, if you will, the number of families that look to this program. The kids seen it. I had the privilege to see it in action in the summer. Tremendous all year round, and we have such a great demand, and it's wonderful that we can provide what seems to be a great service. So this is a chance just to have a glimpse into the CARES program. So thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to provide an overview for what CARES has become. I think you might be amazed on how widespread we are. So it's really just some basics. I put in front of you just our general day. We are in every school up through 7th grade. We provide morning coverage for kindergarten through grade 5. All of our sites open at 6:45. It's obviously we have staggered start times, so the length of the program in the morning varies school to school. We provide a light breakfast, they do activities. Obviously, that's a smaller portion of our program. After school, as soon as dismissal ends, we have our outline of a check-in, we have snack, we have a variety of activities, and all of our sites go until 5:45. What happens at the middle school is the very first hour at dismissal, the middle school students, approximately 20 of them at this point, go into the library, they start their homework. And what we decided to do last year was have those students actually go across the street and merge with the West at 2:45. And that way, really the students just have a greater opportunity for more peer interaction. We have more of the run of the school, computer labs, gyms, et cetera. So that has been actually well received. The variety of what's offered in each school really is based around the students, their age group, and the staff. Nice thing about CARES, I think, is that each of our staff members can bring something unique to our programs. So here are some numbers, just so you can see how we've grown. This is just in the last 3 years. There's a steady increase. Boutwell is always very small in the morning. We're only open for an hour before school starts. I would draw your attention to Woburn Street. In the afternoons, 3 years ago, we averaged 96 students on an average afternoon, and we blossomed to 134 this year. So some of that's the demographics of just where, buildings are being put up in Avalon Oaks, et cetera, housing. It is what it is. So that's quite a jump in, in having students to care for. In our programs, we typically use common spaces. So we're given the cafeteria, the gym, the computer lab. Obviously, we go outside when we can, and we use some specialist rooms when available. So space is honestly our biggest concern, is as we're growing and providing more and more coverage for families, it's really, just having a place to provide quality programming and enriching programming. We're not all in the cafeteria for 3 hours in the afternoon. You'll notice with the middle school, there was a little dip last year with the 8 students, like I said. It was not the most exciting program. When you're in middle school, you don't necessarily want to go to CARES. So by having the students merge over with the West, it was highly popular with our kids. So more of them have signed up. Having said that, one of the things we're also looking to for next year is to, through the CARES umbrella, shall we say, is to do some more after-school club offerings for our middle school students. So we would still be having 6th and 7th graders allowed to enroll in CARES per se, but where Dr. Brand and I have already met about, and with the middle school teachers about potentially offering some enrichment clubs as an alternative to the traditional CARES experience. Just so you know, in all of our numbers, we do strive for a 1-to-10 ratio with our staff, which is very nice. With the younger kids, it's probably more like 1-to-7 or 8 for staff to students. in addition to the 180 school days. So what I showed you initially was the 180 school days that are offered for Wilmington students, Wilmington public school students. When we have vacation coverages, April, February, and our summer, we actually are open to any residents of Wilmington that are within that age group. So the reason we can do that is we are in a centralized location. The February and April, we're going over to the Woburn Street, and we have the entire school basically to use, so therefore we have the ability to watch more kids. In the summer, we are at the north. Those programs are full-day coverage. We open at 7 in the morning, and we go straight through to 5:45. Again, if you can see our numbers, February vacation 4 years ago was 84 kids. We had 131 this time. 78 for April, we're up to 126. So there's a trend. The nice thing about the vacation weeks is we do have all the children in a centralized location, but they're broken up by age groups, so there's generally, first grade classrooms, second grade classrooms, et cetera. We get to do field trips. It's really the time when we can do a lot of enrichment things. Especially in the summer, we have the Museum of Science coming this summer, bringing reptiles one day, doing science experiments another day. We go off on field trips, Kimball's Farm, Bodeborg, which is like this Minecraft thing down in Malden, I think it was, for the older kids. We go bowling. So every week, each age group gets to typically go off-site on a field trip. We provide swimming at the Boys and Girls Club one day a week. So it's honestly a lot of fun, which is why we're very popular. I had to show you some cute pictures, so that's, we're cares. So this is just some of the fun stuff we do. I would like to draw your eyes to the bottom right there of the fire department. So I have to do a shout out to our fire department. This past summer, we had 160 kids all dressed in their bathing suits to go swimming. The bus didn't show up. Yeah, and it was a really hot day. So, great team of employees that I have. We just started going, wish we could hose them down, and we're all thinking of calling our husbands to bring hoses. And somebody made a joke about we could use the fire department. Well, I'll call them. And they came over, and they literally hosed down our kids. And it was fantastic. So the kids were not upset that they missed swimming that day. I want you to know who cares for your kids. So myself and my assistant, Patty Boja, run the office. But CARES has, in their sites, there's a full-time site coordinator. It's their full-time position. And happens to be all women at this point. I will say all those women have degrees in education or related field. They have experience in childcare settings. So we really have some highly trained individuals. We also have 3 what we call apprentices. They're kind of leaders in training who fill in and provide, especially on our larger sites, the Shawsheen and the Woburn Street. You really do need 2 people holding down that fort. We have approximately 40 group leaders, which are adults. We hire what we call leaders in training, which are high school students and some college students. Which is really nice. In fact, Mr. Wilson, who presented earlier, is one of my employees, just gonna say. So it's a really nice way to have the Wilmington High School students working for the district. We have our college students that return in the summer as well. We have a program nurse, and we've just hired 2 part-time social emotional mentors. And what we decided to do very recently was, because we have so many kids, and it's behavior management is obviously always the big factor. And we have so many staff. We have approximately 90 staff, which I don't think a lot of people realize CARES has 90 staff members on payroll. So we have hired these 2 women who work within the district to work part-time, to go on sites and really coach our staff on problem solving, on general behavior management, general socialization, and playing in a large group. Really a lot of social emotional learning. So they're there to coach our staff to provide that support on the ground for our students. All of our staff actually do PD. So each year we follow the guidelines of early childhood education. If you're depending on the number of hours you work, you have to do professional development. I think that's the main part for those. And safety. So the most thing people want to know, are their kids safe, right? So physically and emotionally. So physically, we have locked buildings. Parents have parent PIN codes. We ID parents to come pick up their kids. We have walkie-talkies, if you've ever, we're like Logan Airport. I mean, we know where every child is at every moment. It's kind of comical when I first started. We also participate in ALICE drills. So our site coordinators will participate in school-based ones. And this past summer, Wilmington Police Department came during our summer program, and we did a full ALICE drill in our building. So our staff is prepared. They're also, every staff member, including our high schoolers, are first aid, CPR, and EpiPen trained. Some of our staff are safety care trained. Our site coordinators participate in many of the school-based PBIS meetings. I personally am part of the District Safety Committee as well as Behavioral Health Task Force. So we take physical safety very seriously, and we also take emotional safety very seriously. Some of the nice partnerships we have going on is we're part of this anti-bullying initiative with the Shawshene Tech. Angela Kyra comes every spring for approximately 8 weeks, and she brings a few of her students, and they work alongside of our students. This is happening at the West, so it's with the Weston Middle School. Parents in CARES have the option to participate or not. Most sign up their children to do it. And it's really just a really nice peer mentoring thing of how to have positive relationships. I mean, truthfully, the best anti-bullying is to be kind to one another and to be supportive and to be collaborative. So if you have that frame of mind, bullying doesn't exist, right, in theory. And what's really cool is we actually have a special event coming up at the end of April. There is an artist named Rob Surrett who does some fantastic creations, mosaics. So he has asked through Angela Kyra to come participate in our CARES after-school group. We're partnering, I've already spoken with Kevin Welch. We're gonna have some other middle school students. And there's gonna be a 3-day period where this artist is coming to CARES over at the middle school to create a mosaic. He does a presentation on positive peer relationships and anti-bullying, and then the children are gonna have a common goal to create this piece of art. The cool thing about CARES is we have the time outside of school hours to do these kind of things, right, to kind of bring things to life. We also have partnered with the athletic department. We had cheerleaders come and do a clinic this past summer. We were looking to expand that. We work with the local Heroes Club at the high school, Letters to the Soldiers, and just some other things that we've done in the community. There's a crocheting club that's happened with the seniors over at the North, which is really fun. Farmer Dave lives next to the Boutwell, and the children go across the street and have done some farming with him in the fall. We had a massive sock drive this past fall where all of our sites participated, and we collected 3,500 pairs of socks. Pretty impressive. We are now thinking of doing a diaper drive for the spring. But we have, through holiday spoons, I mean, every program does something unique with their age group to collect funds and to give back to the community. And I think it's just really important that in those after-school hours, we hone in on that time and the children get to do something for, the community at large. We have one little offshoot. Yep, about that part. Box. So Box is a program that runs again through the CARES office. It's called Build Our Kids' Success. It's sponsored by Reebok. It's been at the Shawshene and the Woburn Street for several years. So it's 2 days a week for an hour. 25 kids can participate. And it's really a physical activity program where non-CARES staff members are trained in Box on how to implement these lessons. They talk about health, nutrition, and they get the kids active and moving. It's really proven to be very successful in kids being prepared to go for the school day. I know child participate in it. And I'm very excited because this year we expanded it to the West Intermediate School. They started in the fall, and now the North has started one. So now we're all the way through first grade through fifth to provide that for our kids. And that's us in a nutshell. Any questions?
Mrs. Burns?
Can you clarify, my kids were in CARES a decade ago. Can you explain what the CARE program nurse does? What's her role in the youth?
So what she does is she really helps us with the management of making sure that any student that has any medical needs are met. So they have an allergy action plan, asthma plan, if there's any medications that need to be delegated during our hours, so she is available for us to do that.
So she travels amongst the sites?
She does. We are in a situation currently where we have specific student needs in one site, so she bases herself at that school when it's needed.
Okay.
And then preparing for our summer and our vacation programs. You know, she brings, whenever any child is registering, she pulls all that information to make sure, peanut allergies, et cetera, and
Like
all
the
that
registration
information.
piece?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the SLE mentors, are they separate from the district?
Yes, they're hired from CARES as a small part-time position. We just started that.
And and that's fantastic. I'm so happy that you've added that, since I think it's a nice balance with our schools. What type of background are they? Are they?
So we actually have two women that work for the district. One is Kellyanne Sweeney, who actually used to work for CARES, and now she is a counselor over at the middle school.
Okay.
So she has a counseling degree, mental health. And then we have Cherie Emmons, who works in the north, who also has the same. So yes, during
So
the
they-
school
they
day, they are well-versed in their field, and they're both very familiar with our program, so they understand the nuances of, we're not the school day. And our staff is, like I said, our staff is wonderful, and truthfully, the reason CARES is so well-received is the parents love our staff, and the kids love our staff. But, they're not trained in special education per se, or just group management of 20 kids. So
I see it as
it's wonderful, because it just empowers my staff to have somebody who's got that background knowledge to.
But I see it as a
support
good
them.
consistency between school and after-school programming with regards to the lessons and the strategies they're implementing.
Exactly.
So I think that only reinforces what the kids are learning.
Thank you. I mean, we look at it as our kids, they're Wilmington kids. They walk through the door at 6:45, and some of them, truthfully, they come through the door at 6:45. They're in CARES in the morning, they go through the school day, and then they're with us till 5:45. It's a long day, but they're all Wilmington kids. So the most consistency we can provide for our kids makes everyone happier, and, so thank you
Thank
for
you.
saying that.
Mr. Talbot?
Are you able to deal with kids with special needs situations?
Absolutely. I mean, any child who's enrolled in Wilmington Public Schools is able to register for a program. So we do our very best to make any accommodations that are required. Having said that, we are what we are in that, we are in large rooms. We're in a cafeteria. So if we have a student that a lot of stimulation is difficult, that might be a conversation to see if it's the appropriate environment, because we're not a classroom of, a small setting. But every student comes in, we do our best to provide an appropriate program that's accessible to them. And we reach out to the school day staff. So some of the kids, it's just, they have troubles with transitions. So we speak to the special education department and their teachers and be like, what can you give us as tools, strategies that have worked through the school day that might help this child transition into our program? And so for the most part, we've been pretty successful.
I was more referring to like with physical, like in a wheelchair or.
Oh, absolutely, they would be allowed to participate in CARES. I haven't had that particular issue yet here, but absolutely, if they're part of Wilmington schools, they're part of our program.
I'll let Mr. Ragsdale, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Talbot.
so you said that all the staff are first aid and
Mm-hmm.
EpiPen and CPR certified, and then I think there was a level above that, safety care? I
Safety
didn't-
care, so safety care is,
say what that is?
that is, if we have a child that escalates in behavior, so there are a few select staff that are trained in that, like our social emotional mentors are trained in that,
This is like
for instance.
restraint and that type of,
As a last resort, yes, but it's that behavior management, when behaviors escalate, to really have the training to de-escalate a situation before it comes out of control.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And during the vacation weeks in summer, when you said that it's open to all Wilmington residents, is that the same cost to families, whether
Yep.
they're school students or not?
Yes. So our costs are very reasonable, and we charge for the vacation weeks by the day, and then parents just pay additional for field trips. That's just added on to based on what we do.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Talbot?
Yeah, the other question I had was about AED training. Is that given to, is that,
When we do the first aid training course, they do go through the, they do the AED machine.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's part of the first aid
Okay.
training
I wasn't
that they
sure
take, yeah.
or not?
Great. Any other comments or questions from committee? Okay, great. Ms. Parker?
All right.
Thank you for bringing Box to the West. We're so
Oh.
I didn't know what we were going to do this year because we've been a part of it since the very beginning.
Yeah,
so we're
yeah, and the
just
kids
thrilled.
do love, and we have great staff that have just kept it
Wonderful.
going,
It's a
so.
great way to start the day.
Yeah, thank
We'll
you.
say the children will say that they have better days on Box days, so thank you.
All
That's
right.
good to hear. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you very
Parker,
much.
for your presentation. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, I believe we're going to get a update and summary on Global Child. Dr. Brand, would you like to introduce this one for us?
Sure. In your packet, there's both a cover memo and then also a subsequent memo about the Global Child Program. And Ms. Diana Hibner is here to present a little bit more information about the program and provide you with an update.
Thank you, Dr. Brand, for inviting me, and the school committee and the school administrators. I don't know how many of you even know about the program, so I'm just kind of give you an overview of it and then go into what it is in the town of Wilmington. So Global Child was started in 1992. We've been around for a very long time. We're currently in 20 communities throughout Massachusetts, both in public and private schools. And we offer Spanish, French, and Mandarin classes. Mandarin was started much later, you know, when the big interest came about it. Everybody before was really Spanish, a little bit of French, and now it's the big push for Mandarin as well. But so many parents and traveling, and in some towns, we have a lot of Mandarin depending upon the students that might be adopted. Like in certain towns, there's a high adoption rate, so those students are from China. So it's a great way for those parents to be able to, you know, still have their child have a little bit about that culture as well. So currently, a child can be in our program for 5 years and not repeat a curriculum. So we offer 12 Spanish curriculums, 12 French, and 8 Mandarin curriculums. So here in Wilmington, a child can be in the program from kindergarten through grade 5 and not repeat a curriculum at all. The students do receive a parent booklet and a CD, and that's great for parents. So many of them haven't utilized a language or might not know any, you know, part of it. So it has all the vocabulary that the children are learning. It's translated in the back of the book, and there's some additional fun activities, coloring sheets for the kids to do in that target language. Typically, when we give the books out, we never see them again, so that children have them. Classes meet once a week for 50 minutes. And we offer 2 semesters a school year. So we start with a 10-week fall semester, which begins the first week in October. Then we take the break during the holiday, like everybody else, and we start up a winter-spring session the first week in February. We do follow the school calendar, so on early release days, there are no classes. That alleviates any concern. If we have a snow day, on a day that we do have class, we make up that day. So the parents are going to get their 10 classes. The only thing that we miss out on is if a child is absent. Children will be in the program here when they go off to high school or middle school. When they do get a language, they have a lot of confidence in themselves. They have a lot of confidence. They're ready to take the next step and do a lot more reading and writing with that target language that they're taking. Our teachers are all native speakers. They will complete the CORI form in every town that they teach in. A lot of my staff members will teach in multiple communities. Here, now with the new fingerprinting process, that has been implemented too. So the teachers are being fingerprinted, and most districts will let us have the fingerprinting, what's the word I'm trying to, have that release submitted to another school system. So we do that as well. And the teachers have to attend mandatory training sessions several times throughout the year. I do come around and I visit them. We do evaluations, and they get that done as well. Here in Wilmington, we started our program in the year 2000. We had a very big program when we started. It was Spanish and French. French lasted about 2 years before it dwindled down. Back in 2013, with the superintendent and some parent interest, we did try offering Mandarin. It didn't run even for a semester. I'm not opposed to trying any language if parents thought it was something to, bring back. Currently, right here, the bulk of our registrations are at the Boutwell, Wildwood, Shawshene, and Woburn Street School. North and West Intermediate, we get a class here or there, but it's not consistent. I really wish it was. I've tried doing them in the morning, I've tried doing them in the afternoon, but I think as the kids get older, there's a little bit more activities for them. The homework is a little bit harder. They're in a bigger school now where they're all coming together, so I do get parents that have been with us for many years who want their children to be able to continue. It's just trying to find the right day and time and trying to get that to happen there. Since I gave you a summary of the enrollment numbers, so they've been pretty steady. I gave you a breakdown of that. We typically have about 70 students, somewhere between 45 and 70 students a year. And again, that's really primarily between the ages of kindergarten and grade 3, so that's quite a few students that will stay in the program there. Again, right now, we're just offering Spanish, and all of the classes are held after school. Yep. Do you have any questions?
Mrs. Burns?
Thank you. Yeah. So I had a quick, because I thought at one point they offered Italian too, and that was a
We
struggling.
don't offer Italian.
No?
We never have. I know some of the school districts do have a grant from the Italian embassy. That's what it is, yeah.
Good, but my other question that I came prepared for was, what is the tuition like, and does Global Child, are they able to offer financial assistance?
Yes, yep. And so the tuition is $180 for the 10-week semester. We do offer a discount for siblings and students in the CARES program because there are numerous amounts of them. If I ever get a request for financial aid, I've never turned anybody down.
Okay.
And I know a lot of times it's sometimes the parents that ask for it, but I love it when a school administrator or a principal will call me and ask me for something because they know best.
Right.
Who in their school system might need something. Maybe there's just a tragedy that just happened that we don't know about, and I've always honored that.
Wonderful, thank you,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions?
I just wanted to say my son participated for a few years, and it was a great program. It's
Oh,
great.
thank you, thank you. Sonia's awesome. Did he have
Yes,
Sonia?
he did.
Yeah, so everybody's had Sonia because she's been here in the Wilmington schools for at least 13 years, and she loves her kids here. I make my schedule around her schedule. So she's had those kids from kindergarten until they can't take it anymore. And I will say, if you ever get a chance to go visit her, those kids speak all Spanish throughout the whole class. It's awesome.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's great with them.
That's great, thank you. Mr. Ragsdale, did you?
I was curious, how is this opportunity advertised? I mean, how is it made known that it's available in the district?
So what, years and years ago, we used to send home the paper flyers like everybody else. Right now, we're doing it through the virtual backpack. I send it off to the superintendent's office, and it gets sent out electronically. I get it approved from each principal, making sure that space is going to be okay, and the day of the week. And I like to try to find, if there's a certain conflict on that day, then we try not to offer it on that day. So it gets approved from each principal, then I send it to the superintendent's office, gets approved, and then Tristan's been posting it out in the electronically for me. And I think a lot of it is, returning parents that want to come out and have their kids stay in it.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All
Thank you
right,
for your time. We
very much for
appreciate
your
the
time. I
update.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Again with a nice segue. Our next item on our agenda this evening is an update and a explanation of the Seal of Biliteracy for our World Languages program. Make the introduction.
In your packet is a memo entitled Seal of Biliteracy, and Mr. Carlos Luis Brown is here. He's our curriculum team leader for world languages, and so this is to provide you with a little bit of an insight and window in terms of this. I'll call it a program. I'm not sure that that's the right term exactly, but certainly a really important one, and it is in the spirit of thinking about opportunities for our students, not just here in Wilmington, but quite frankly beyond. So with that, Carlos.
Hola a todos, gracias por tenerme aquí. ¿Puedo hacerlo todo en español? I've seen some of these faces before in my classes, so that's totally okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Carlos Luis Brown, for people who don't know me. I've been in Wilmington now for 6 years, very proudly, and for 15 years now in education. So this has been fun. I'm just starting to learn how to do this, so this is good. Thank you for initiating the spotlight, too, to all the school committee members. This is really a great place to come and talk to you on a regular basis and have open communication. And I hope you'll take advantage if you have any questions, too, for me at the end of it or at any point in time if I'm going fast or if I start speaking Spanish, you can always ask me. We can go from there. And thank you for your continued support of world languages in general. I know that world language teachers can sometimes get on the soapbox and start really advocating for world languages because we can feel isolated sometimes, but we have been a very well-supported program in Wilmington, and I'm proud to be a part of that, and I'm thankful to have that opportunity here, so thank you all for that. Sorry, I forgot here we go. First, I wanted to introduce you to my amazing team. So we have Ms. Katia DeStefano, who's our Italian teacher, Ms. Kate Lerner, who is our French teacher, who is on maternity leave. She just had a baby girl. She'll be back in a month and a half, so we wanted to congratulate her. Mrs. Rebecca Philbrick and Mrs. Rosangela Roman. On our website that we had put up, and I'll mention that a little bit more at the bottom, I always put myself all the way at the bottom because I feel like I'm not the important person. I was scolded by all of my department that I should be the one at the top because I think they wanted to make sure that I got the first phone call, not them. So, but I think it was more genuine than that. My amazing high school team, Ms. Megan Burns is a Spanish teacher. Mr. Daniel DiCioni is a French or Italian or Spanish teacher, depending on how we need him to fit into the pieces of the puzzle. He's a man of many gifts and excellent for our complicated scheduling program sometimes. Mrs. Rebecca Martinello is our Spanish teacher. Ms. Alessandra Negrini is our Italian teacher. Ms. Sandra Nowak, our Spanish teacher. Ms. Teresa Pietro, our Spanish teacher. And Ms. Joanne Feliz, who is our Spanish and French teacher. Well, I should say French and Spanish teacher. So I have an outstanding group of teachers who motivate me every day and help be my extremely well-oiled machine. And sometimes a good leader knows when to lead, knows when to follow, and knows when to get out of the way. And I have a wonderful team that can remind me of which time is appropriate for all of those things. So, I know that tonight's a long night, so I'll try to be brief. We just updated our website so that it no longer looks like you will hear the beep, beep, beep noise when you sign on to AOL to check out your websites. It now looks like it's in the 21st century. Please take a look at it. On the slides that should be shared with you, if they're not shared with you tonight, I'll make sure that I share them with you and that they're on our website. And they're also on our Twitter handle. If you'd like to use your phones and be fancy, if you take out your camera and actually just hold it over in camera mode to scan the QR code, it will pop up a link right on that QR code that is right, yes. Some people are hesitant, some people are not, and I hope it works.
Learn a new skill.
Just the awe and wonder on Mrs. Bryson's face.
So,
That's not working.
it's not.
It's being blocked by a few of our
I
members.
apologize. So it is also on the website for the school, so WPSK12.com. It is there. Sorry.
It could be operator error right here.
It might not be, but the website is really meant for a hub of information for families, not just families who are in Wilmington already but need to know information about course and designs and requirements. It has our program of studies on there. It has lots of advocacy material in terms of why languages are important. I don't need to advocate that to this group, they know it, but some parents might wonder, sometimes, why are 4 languages held up so high and held so important? The website is there as a resource for our proficiency-based classrooms, and it's also there for parents who might be looking at Wilmington as a place to move to, and if they're looking at programs that other places offer and might be wanting to compete with other programs. We have a really strong program that competes with a lot of programs. I'm very proud of that. They can get information there about the World Language Program itself. So, all right, so 6 years ago when I first started, my poor department, who was extremely resilient, started with I believe Ms. Peters is starting her first year as principal right before I was hired, so she and I came in at the same time. Well, she's been here for much, much longer than I have, but as in her current role, I should say. And we had brand-new schedule at the middle school and the high school, brand-new DDMs, district determined measures. I know some people hiss at that sound, so I apologize. For us, it was really important. We were moving to a brand-new high school, and we also had to roll out the educator evaluation system. And on top of all of that, they were getting a brand-new curriculum team leader. So we tore off the Band-Aid, so to speak, and we blew up everything in the process. I'm very proud of the questions that we started asking, which is why do our students take languages, and what is the most important thing that our students want out of it? So, majority of students always say that they want to speak the language. And if I had a nickel for every time I heard I took some language in high school, but I can understand it and I can't speak it anymore, I would happily be into my retirement at this point, but that's okay. So we wanted to make sure that everything that we did was built around speaking. And I had an amazing group of teachers who looked at that and said, that absolutely makes sense. They had been doing it, but maybe in a different way. DDMs gave us a certain structure to do it, and we knew going into DDMs that we wanted it to be important, and if the Department of Education ever tore those away and said DDMs are no longer going to happen, which we predicted would happen and did happen that way, we would tear the cover page off of it and we would just call them common assessments, because we knew that assessing speaking proficiency at all times was the most important skill set to build up. And the only way to build up speaking is to build up all the other skill sets around oracy and literacy around that. So we took on that challenge. With that, we also had to start explaining a little bit of things that are important to people. So if we tell our students that they're going to be fluent by the time they graduate high school, in any school, Wilmington or otherwise, this is your next step right here. It doesn't work. Fluency is a word that sort of is a word of frustration. My student has taken language for 6 years. Why are they not fluent? Fluency is the wrong word. Fluency is only going to take place if you live in a place abroad for an extended period of time. Fluency only happens with sustained contact with another target culture. Fluency does not happen with 125 hours to 130 hours of class time for 6 years straight. We know from Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote The Tipping Point, 10,000 hours to mastery is where you get. We know that from studies on baby brains, you have at least 4,000 hours of someone speaking to you before you can actually utter and copy sounds. So it's not going to happen. So we don't want to set up our students for frustration and failure. And believe me, when they get to levels 2, 3, 4, and 5 of a world language, they feel it. So we can't put that expectation on them because it's not fair. So if not fluency, then we're going to use a different term that's more appropriate, and that's proficiency. So everything that we've done is about proficiency. What does it mean to be proficient? If I was teaching in class right now, I would tell you to turn to a partner and talk to them for a little bit and try to define proficiency, but we're not there, and this is a long night for all of you, so I shall move on. Defining proficiency, simply put, is in images. If I'm a novice, this is what I can communicate. I get the idea. I see things, I can make out what it is. I'm not going to quiz you on what the picture is. I can see it. At intermediate, things get a little bit more clear. I can start to see more clearly what the picture is, even if it's not perfect. It's not really until we get into advanced, distinguished, superior, those higher levels, that we're going to see the exact picture as its masterpiece. Intermediate is where high school is. Advanced is at top level or lower level AP classes, 5 honors classes, sometimes, and not all the time. So based off the instructional time that we have. So our instructional time is laid out like this. Exploratory is amazing as a program in 6th grade because it gives kids a taste of all the languages that we offer, and it gives them a fair chance at it. We used to have a very different schedule. We've had several different schedules at the middle school. I don't have to explain that to you. I know that you know it. But our current schedule allows for exploratory to take place, and we reach 97% of our 6th graders. And they all get access to 1 quarter's worth of a world language. It's amazing. So then in 7th and 8th grade, they'll move from novice high and some balance of novice high to intermediate low. And hopefully they get to intermediate mid to intermediate high. You'll notice those little dash marks. That means it is a lower level. We'll call that strong and weak. Science tells us that we need about 125 hours to 150 hours once we hit intermediate to move up the level. We don't have 150 hours in terms of our course scheduling time, and that's not including any interruptions on assemblies or MCAS or things like that take place along the road too. So why does it take that long? Novice low and novice mid are really easy levels. We can list words, we can give ideas, we can have thought process behind it, but we don't have a lot of trouble with the communication. You see, as we wind up, vocabulary expands, grammar expands, and it gets much more difficult to figure things out. It's going to take a lot more time to get that breadth and depth of topics. So everyone stay with me. I feel like that last presentation before lunch or dinner goes, right? Like that's what I feel. So I'm trying to, so thank you. And I'm also trying not to pass out from nerves. So we're good. Who wants to go? All right. So one of the things that I'm really proud of is that sometimes we teach language, and at the end of the chapter, there's a thing on culture that you read. Hopefully, if you get to it at the end of the chapter. Our approach has been sort of the opposite of that. We want to teach culture, and learning language is sort of a byproduct of that. We want to make sure that all of our students are getting access to the culture. We teach language through culture. That's one of our most important parts. You'll see Ms. Peters there, ever so happily, hanging out in our W2 conversation groups. When the FIFA World Cup was playing, in a completely selfish move, I hosted a Portugal versus Spain during the first round of it because I knew I could not get home in time for the 2 o'clock start time. And I had about 40 to 50 students join me in this room on the huge screen, and we had an absolute blast with it. Teachers were asking me, can we teach some things like chants and things like that? And I was like, no, not right now, because the game is on. So it was a great moment, and I still have a couple of the Portuguese fans who still come and taunt me. So it was a tie, but they still come and taunt me anyway. We have done a lot of outreach for our community. If you've seen the international cooking workshops, Tremezzo has been a great partner. Our kids get to go there for $10 and have like a 19-course meal and learn about the history of it and compare different cultures that have meshed together into those cooking dishes. We had our our Culture Fest, and I think some of you were able to make it. That is one of my favorite events that takes place every 2 years, and we got to represent over or just about 30 countries. I apologize for not representing Canada this year. It was, yes. Dr. Brand very much immediately noticed it. But I will find pictures of the last group that did Canada because that was an amazing group. We've teamed up with the Wilmington Library, and they've done Foreign Film Night with the World Cultures Club. So about once a month, they have films in either Italian, French, Spanish, anything they can find. Kids can go and watch. We have a gift of having the interdisciplinary block, or the IB block, or several names that it goes under. We are able to have conversation groups where students will come and under the supervision of language teachers will actually be able to practice their skills outside of the classroom. Because again, 125 hours, still not enough. We need to do that a little bit more, so we need to make sure that we have opportunities outside of that. All right, we try to take over for the month of March. Tomorrow is Pi Day, so that's about the only leverage that I will give the math crew on us at all. And other than that, we like to take over the month. This was the menu that we had from last year. We had International Game Day, International Films, a Cultural Scavenger Hunt, Share Your Culture at Lunch Day, International Films, Wear Your Culture Day. The Multilingual Story Slam was awesome last year. Students getting to present in their target language and target culture and not doing a translation. It was all up for you to figure out what the story was about with the cues that we had. So again, Google Translate is the enemy that we're trying to beat, and there we are. I need to emphasize my team always. Our teachers love our students. Our teachers love your students. Everything that they do is about them learning. So we have played badminton. We have spent summers. We want to see them from 6th grade and meet every single one of them, to see them off at graduation and everything in between. So our teachers absolutely love our students, your students, and I need to emphasize that over and over again. That poster that you see in the top right was Jesse Ding's MAFLA contest poster. MAFLA is the Massachusetts Foreign Language Association, and they run several contests. The deadline is tomorrow for a couple of them. Jessie was a runner-up. I thought she was robbed because it was an amazing poster, but the other poster was also extremely good. And I am the contest chair on MAFLA too, so I have to be slightly less biased than that, so I apologize. We celebrate, again, we did the Cultural Fest. It was an amazing event. It's one of my favorites. The student performances, if you haven't seen them, WCTV had a student doing a recording of them, and they're trying to work on them and get them published. As soon as I get that out, I'll post it out on our Twitter account and put it on our Facebook, or not Facebook, on our webpage as well. But our individual performances were amazing. We had an Indian dance. We had an amazing guitar performance by Michael. I'm actually going to see if he can do some recording for some of our background music for some things, because he played an amazing guitar. And we had an Italian solo song. It takes a lot for these kids to get up there in front of all of their peers and do solo performances. I did not get a picture of the Irish step dance that also took place, but again, an amazing event. I did get Dr. Brand there sampling some of the food, so. Very good. Alumni Roundtable is one of our big events that we need to make sure that we always make sure that students see the value of world languages, and sometimes we have to make that a little more concrete than just accept what the teacher's word is for it. This year, we had over 40 students show up at our World Language Alumni Roundtable event, and that was during W2, and so that room was packed. We didn't have actually any more room to go, and as you can tell, we had 6 representatives from the class of 2010 through the class of 2016 come and talk about all of their experiences that they've had and how world languages have changed them, and not all necessarily in the language that they studied while they were here, and I thought that was really important. All right, I'll close again with 346 hours during 2017 of professional development with 4 countries visited. In 2018, 540 hours of professional development with 9 countries visited. If those were professional development hours throughout the course of the year, I think they would be impressive by themselves, but that is just the summer. Those hours were teacher hours done over the summertime with Sleepaway MAFLA Camp, which is the Proficiency Academy, which is 4 days, study abroad. One of our teachers had the Joanne Benton Educated Travel Grant. She was in Spain for a week. This is, we are on all the time. We are learning culture all the time, and we are bringing culture back all the time. So it's important. And what should have been a presentation of awards, I don't know why all the students who have graduated did not or were not able to make it back out tonight. I thought they were really itching to get back. But over the course of the last 4 years, again, Wilmington has to be exceptionally proud of this. We were one of the first 6 districts to talk about the SEAL. So the SEAL is the handout that you have that, I don't know if you had a chance to read it or not, but a really quick summary of it is a way to award students officially for being able to be functional in 2 languages. 2016, we were one of the first 6. We've led the way. That means that we led the way in terms of experimenting with tests that would help us out and help us determine those levels. That meant that we led the way for what would become the Look bill that was signed in 2017. We had a voice at the state level as a district about how to do things, how to process things, what mistakes that we made, and now because of our work as a district, we have left an imprint on the state in the Seal of Biliteracy. Now the Seal of Biliteracy is officially recognized by the state. Sadly, I don't think they're going to recognize the kids who had the awards before this time, but moving forward, they've also raised the bar a little bit. Before, it used to be that a recognition of it was an intermediate mid-level of fluency. Bad word, I want to remember, no? Fluency, bad word, proficiency, good word? All right, just making sure. All right, so they have an intermediate mid-level of proficiency, and now the state is recognizing that they have to be in an intermediate high level of proficiency to get the seal itself, and the seal with distinction is an advanced low. So I know that our students are resilient, and I know that they will step up, and we will have to make some adjustments accordingly to make sure that our students can get there successfully. So I needed to mention Isabella Signa, Lawrence Gordon, Timothy Scanlon, and Jess Nussbaum, because they were the first 4 who volunteered for this grueling, what was an almost 7 to 9 hour exam in the first round of it. There's no time limit on how long you can take it, and they just kept coming back because they wanted to do well on it, and they did. So I think that was really important. They were our first group to come through, so they definitely deserve. And this year's awards, last year's awards, were based on the AP Spanish exam. Unfortunately, because of low enrollment, we were not able to run the French 5 or the Italian 5 classes. We only had about 9 or 10 students interested in each one of those classes, and due to the enrollment procedure, we weren't able to get those classes to run. But the AP class did run, thanks to Victoria Ayoko, who sort of single-handedly made sure that he could recruit enough people for it. So Lindsay Amazine, Faria Haq, Victoria Ayoko, and Elizabeth Murphy all earned platinum, which is the highest award that you could earn in the toolkit. Catherine Edibird, Aditya Gautam, and Jessica Morales, who has an asterisk because she's actually graduating this year. She took AP as a junior. So we already have one awardee this year. It's exciting. And Jade Brennan, Nathaniel Demeko, and Sydney Podolsky all earned the silver. So they basically doubled our awards in 1 year of AP exams. 10 out of 11 students earned the award based off the AP exams. So I have to give a huge shout out to Profe Pietro, and she was the one who led that group through that AP class. We hadn't had an AP class in, I think, 8 years run. So that was the first run into a modified test, and that was a big accomplishment for all of them. So that was huge. All right, and I leave you with these last 2 slides. I asked for some quotes from our students, and Vittorio gladly obliged with a smiling picture as he was traveling abroad everywhere. When incentivizing learning a language, there's a heavy focus on the concrete outcomes, such as increased job opportunities and easier travel. While these are all true, I found that the true value of learning another language to be more abstract. Learning Spanish has given me an alternate lens through which to observe the world. It has connected me to amazing people, stories, art, and culture. It has provided me a new way of thinking about problems, and I'm forever grateful for this privilege. I don't need to say any more than that. So again, I want to thank all of you. I did leave a little statistic on the side there about how the United States, in terms of primary and secondary, so K through 12 foreign language education, is a little different than some of our counterparts across the big blue sea. So that 20% represents schools that offer K through 12 education. So Wilmington would also not fall into that 20%. They would fall into a heavier percentage, which I think is about 64% schools that offer it at the secondary level, either exclusively or inclusively. But thank you for being a part of the majority that is in the right and offering all these amazing languages for our students. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my SEAM collaborative members, our Job Alikes group that works with the surrounding districts, Kim Talbot from Melrose, Jorge Allen from Andover, and Amy St. Arnaud from North Reading. We have visited each other's schools. We have built up assessments. We have tried to collaborate on lessons and teaching. We've been to each other's classrooms. We've hosted them here. We're seeing what other people do. We know that we can't do it alone. The work is not supposed to be done alone. We want to share that. We want to share our successes and our failures because it benefits all the students around us. The MAFLA board that I am a part of, the Massachusetts Foreign Language Association, their information is infinitely helpful. I would not be the department head / CTL. Again, I have to explain CTL to everyone because no one really knows what that means. But I would not be as effective as I am without their help. And I'd probably be less long-winded, so I apologize. So thank you again for all your time, and thank you for all you do as a school committee. I'm active with my own child's school in Boston Public Schools, and I know it can be sometimes a thankless job. But I wanted to make sure that I did thank all of you for spending many a night listening to rambling Spanish teachers about all the wonderful things that we're trying to offer all of your wonderful children. So, questions?
Mr. Ragsdale.
I just have a question. So you mentioned that, that the speaking is the prime focus of because that's what people want and the most important thing. So where do you put reading and writing into the program? Obviously not as highly, but to what extent do you still focus on that?
So in terms of the weighting is still the same, but because of the structure of how we did our common assessments, the common assessments really focus on the speaking part. But in order to get to the speaking part, that means we still have to do a lot of reading, a lot of listening, and a lot of writing. So they're equally weighed, but when it comes down to focal common assessments, we've focused on presentational speaking. Now, we have other teachers who have started to work on their eval process I'm now working on listening, or I'm now working on reading comprehension. So we have teachers now branching out. Now that we've got the speaking thing a little bit down stronger, now we're trying to see if we can build out some common assessments across all 4 of those skill sets. So they're still very much counted the same, but when it comes to common language and common assessments, speaking is the one that we want to focus on the most, because it's also the one that inspires the most fear. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? No? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation.
Adios.
That's great. Thank you. All right. Our next item this evening is a behavioral health task force update. Dr. Brand, would you like to give us
Sure,
an
I
intro?
will gladly introduce Ms. Christine Murray, who's our coordinator of behavioral health and social emotional support, and Dr. Ryan Regan, who you know well as our superintendent for curriculum and staff development. They've been working hard. They're here to present on behalf of many who I know that they have been working closely with around a number of different areas that they'll highlight within their presentation this evening on the work of the Behavioral Health Task Force. The bullying prevention intervention plan is one component of this work that they'll speak to, but certainly there's a lot more great efforts and great work that has unfolded in this area. And so with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Great. Thank you.
Get a link from my email that Christine sent me.
Okay, sure. Great. Welcome, thanks for having us. Tonight, we just want to provide an overview of the Behavioral Health Task Force. I did get Dr. Regan to come join us in the group this year, and it's been quite a nice addition to the subgroup. So, thank you. All right. So we will just provide a brief overview tonight. What is the Behavioral Health Task Force? We did put some subgroups together from the group. What is our focus of the year, and some updates from the district as well. So the Behavioral Health Task Force was created in 2014, 2015, when it was established that we all needed to come together as a district, and our mission was to really have a partnership between parents, the community, and schools in our district to come together to support the increasingly challenging behaviors, anxiety, depression, all the topics that we were facing. So we want to address the growing behavioral health needs of our students, weave together many of the initiatives that were already taking place in our district, and to really work on that tiered level model of system of supports. So for the academic piece, that was really in there, but for the behavioral, social emotional piece, we really wanted to establish a preventative framework to incorporate a lot of school-wide supports as well as individual supports for students if needed. So we did create subgroups that first year, and we brought responsive classroom to the district and really looked at some other curricula for the district in this area. So the 3 subgroups are the family and community engagement, the behavior management, and the social emotional learning group, and also the wellness group. Thank you. So the first group is the family community engagement, and again, working collaboratively with a parent representative. We do have district staff here and parent representatives in the audience, but basically to increase our outreach to families. How are we going to work collaboratively with families to increase our communication in this area, to support our students both at school and at home?
So it's also a way to access all our clinical supports and resources. And our big focus of this group was to create the annual behavioral health fair, which was created back in 2014-15. Yes, I want to give a shout out to our Twitter page for the Student Support Center. We felt the need of creating a way of getting the information out from both the Behavioral Health Task Force as well as our office. So that is a new addition. The focus of that group this year really was to focus on the mind, body, and goals, keeping our students happy, healthy, and safe. I know Dr. Brand already mentioned some of the details, as well as MJ with the childcare that will be provided. We do have a link of a podcast that I think we can share. WCTV was kind enough to host myself and Sheila Burke, a fifth grade teacher at the North, to promote all the good things that are happening and the resources that are going to be provided for families. Okay. We can send that out via email to all the staff and students, and I won't bore you with just hearing my voice on that podcast. The second subgroup is the behavior management and social emotional learning.
So this was the group that I was assigned to work with, so we've been working together. We've been working together since our first meeting in September, October. I can't remember when we started. This was probably about 10 or so steady members of this subgroup. So the focus annually around this particular subgroup is to look at the district's policies and protocols and curriculum around SEL, PBIS, anti-bullying. Obviously, with policies, we would not be making changes. We'd be making any sort of recommendations to the school committee if that was necessary. We would look at district-wide practices around social-emotional learning, PBIS, PD. If that were appropriate, this subcommittee could look at opportunities for professional development. This specific year, though, we had a pretty concrete task, which was to update our bullying prevention and intervention plan, the BPIP. This was originally created in the district in 2010, I believe was the first one. Since that time, as you know, the anti-bullying laws in the state were updated. That was around 2014. The BPIP was not updated when the laws changed. So as part of our coordinated program review, it was identified that it was out of date. So we tasked this subgroup with the process of looking at this document and updating it. So you have a copy in your packets of the new behavioral bullying prevention intervention plan, if you want to say behavioral. And we worked to make sure that it was in line with the new state law. Well, new, it's now 2014, it's 5 years old. Can make sure that it was continued to be aligned with the mass model of these plans put out by DESE. We wanted to make sure that we had appropriate strategies in there for identifying and reporting bullying and responding to bullying and behaviors. And make sure that it still was complementing our school wellness policies and discipline policies. So it was basically to update against the law and make sure that what it said we're still doing, make sure that it still matches our program. So as a part of that, I mentioned the coordinated program review. We do need to upload as a part of our corrective action plan an updated version of the BPIP to the state. We sent it off, the old version, to the school department's attorney. He gave us back a red line version where he went through and basically looked at everything from the aspect of the new law, made sure that we had our language correct in all of those areas, and then the subgroup took that red-lined version and went in and started to check, well, if we list these curriculum elements, are we still doing that? If we list these interventions, do those still exist in the schools, right? Because this, again, was 9 years ago when this was created. What do we need to add? So there wasn't a lot of change that came from this, but we were able to update things in small batches just to make sure that we were well aligned. From this point forward, we do need to post the plan online for a 30-day period. for public comment. So that's in the law that we are supposed to do that, so we will publish it on our website with a mechanism we'll use so people can give comments back, probably using like a Survey Monkey or some kind so people can do that. And then from there, we'll go through the process of uploading it through the portal for the state so that they have that related to the CPR. And then once all of that comes together, the actual version itself that has been officially accepted would be published online. We would push it out to staff. We would push it out to parents. Not just post it, but we would push the link out to them with information on it to give, make sure people are aware that this is there, highlighting the fact that there's a flow chart in the back, making sure that parents and teachers and students know what the process is to report, know what they could expect from the schools if they do report. So we're going to use, the power of social media perhaps to kind of push this out and be a little bit more aggressive around that, as opposed to just putting it up there and saying, hoping people see it. We want to make sure that we're being really proactive around that, so the more people get their eyes on this. So, once we share it with you tonight, the plan is to put it up for public comment, hopefully by the end of this week.
The third subgroup is wellness. It is an opportunity to really look at our resources, again, in this area relative to mental health, substance abuse. We are members of the School Mental Health Consortium, which is a great opportunity. We've taken a lot of staff to their PD. John Crocker from Methuen Public Schools has initiated this, and it has been a valuable resource to us. So any information that we get, we bring back to the Behavioral Health Task Force and kind of adopt any situations or procedures that other towns might be doing. One of them right now that we're looking at is a suicide prevention, self-injury protocol that we can follow district-wide. So that is something that we will be looking at in the future in this group. But overall, this subgroup focus this year is to look at a mental health screening tool for the younger grades. We have SOS at 7th grade, a suicide screener, we're looking a little bit more at the YRBS. Overall, the upper grades, we do want to look more at the elementary levels, maybe possibly their transition years, grade 3 and 5. Overall, just to make sure students are having relationships with staff. So that is the main goal of this group. We've narrowed it down to 3 screening tools, so we will hopefully be able to have a screening tool that we can adopt fairly soon. So that's the update from the wellness group. We have talked about signs of suicide, and grade 7, it was implemented in December, and we just finished up. We do have a makeup due to the snow day as well. But it has been a fabulous opportunity for us to really look at what students might not have, pick someone in school that they can go to for help or at home. We do pull the students that are in a different color code, so if there are students that come in the red zone, we do screen them that day and speak with them, follow up with parents, and ultimately it has been a valuable resource. We're hoping to expand that to the high school, possibly in 10th grade within the next few years. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey, as Dr. Brand brought up earlier, will be implemented tomorrow. Both at the high school and middle school level. We did go from, I believe, just 7th and 10th grade in the past to now 6th through 12. We have offered parents to opt out on that if some of the questions are too risque for a 6th grader. Some have, and that is perfectly okay as well. But the most exciting part about this is that we will be able to look at our data in the Middlesex League and really compare it to help us bring back to Wilmington what can we do to increase any type of more supports that we need, whether it's curriculum, screenings, anything else. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that process with the Middlesex League. A little snippet at the vaping committee, which we have had an increase, as as I think we all know, at the middle school and high school level. And there will be more to come on this, but we have gotten student representatives, administrators, both at the middle school and high school level, to combat this. How are we going to help? What are we going to do? And the student voice has been amazing. It's been probably the best experience I've had here in Wilmington, having their voice on what is going on and how we can best address it. So there is possible policy change coming forward in a handbook, possibly a diversion program. We're exploring a lot of different avenues to help address this in the schools. So there will be more to come on that, and it's all up and coming, but I thought I would share a little bit about that. And always a happy announcement. I'm very pleased to announce that the Wilmington Public Schools has been awarded the 2018-19 Safe and Supportive Schools Grant for $7,500 at the middle school. Some of the funds have been used to continue PD for staff in the area of tiered support for PBIS, but the big focus is the Choose to Be Nice curriculum that they have adopted. So just a little bit about that. It is to look at how students interact with one another in schools in all different environments. SEL, how do we incorporate that through our academics, through our curriculum? And currently, 3 gym teachers at the middle school will be piloting the program, and for their 6th grade classes, and ultimately it will go into 7th grade next year and rolled out into 8th grade, specifically with the social studies curriculum that will involve civics in a civics project, which could include a community service project. So I love seeing the SEL being interwoven into, in this case, it would be history. So it is also, it's just a social movement. Choose to be nice, and hopefully it will reflect with our PBS efforts. So yeah, this is an exciting opportunity for the middle school. A lot of information, but specifically we want to thank our task force. They have worked hard with all these initiatives, and we are open to anyone, whether it's school committee, parents, families. If there is an issue in this area, we would love any input from you to bring to the task force and how we can best help and bring it to our schools.
Thanks.
Questions?
Mrs. Burns? I have to say, I want to thank you for the time. I think it's beyond evident, the amount of work and thoughtfulness in creating this bullying and intervention plan. It's very well written. Just because you touched upon, I won't go in because I know there's a barrage of questions that prior to this meeting, I've forwarded on to Dr. Brandon. I know you're working on it, and so I'll be patient in waiting for that. But I just did a little research on it. I think overall my concern is this is a great foundation of which to step from. It's expediting it. It's seeing action behind it that I want to keep in focus. Over the past 2 weeks, I've seen a lot of news footage about attempted suicides in younger and younger. It's hugely concerning for me, and it kind of started me in researching typical bullying intervention plans, and I came up with a lot of articles, not to dissuade, but saying that how some of these initiatives aren't working, and in some cases are counterintuitive to what they're supposed to do. So I'm hoping as this behavior task force continues to grow, that we think more outside of the box and do researches in other areas of the country and seeing what other districts, especially maybe urban districts, are doing to kind of think of more creative approaches, because I think, generally speaking, curriculum and signage only go so far. Kids aren't owning it, they know it, but it's the action behind it, it's seeing it play out amongst our adults, amongst our community members, and with one another that's really going to propel it. And I think that in itself is a huge challenge, is how we can engage. And I think that first step with what you've said, especially with the vaping committee, I think in some school districts I've seen that they have a student safety ambassador assigned to each schools to kind of help engage their peers in the preventive measures. And I think that's something to look into, to see if that's something, in the future we can roll out, because I think that'll only support the initiatives and the focus as to what we're truly trying to do in keeping our kids safe, and building their resiliency and self-confidence and strength around the areas that you're targeting. When you say social emotional learning, that is such a vast and encompasses so many different things, in a developing child as well as an adult. And so I thank you so much for the time and that of the whole committee and investing their time in doing this, because it's such important work and it's ever growing and ever expanding. And so I really thank you for your commitment.
Thank you.
Appreciate
And I
it.
agree about the student involvement and having ambassadors, bystanders, and we do create a lot of that in the health curriculums, in our curriculum, but having that student voice of sticking up for friends and teaching that is a
I think looking outside of the box so you get the engagement, because kids will tune out. It's the same information presented differently, but it's the same information. They know it. It's the ability to actually execute it and to absorb it and practice it, I think. And I think a lot of that is visual, and it's got to be, adults are the first step, you know what I mean? And it's feeling safe in doing so, too.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think there's so many different facets to that piece.
I think a lot of what you're talking about is prime for this committee to continue to look at. Because what we've done now is created this handbook, if you will, of practices and expectations. Right now, what you're talking about is putting it in action, which I think it's a good project for the subcommittee of this
Right.
task force to, sort of take on as a next step. What is it within our own programs that we can enhance, right? It's not always new programming, but
Right.
what can we enhance? It could be exploring new programs as well. But all of that, I think, is something that the subcommittee could.
Great. Thank you
Take
so
on.
very much.
thank you.
I had just wanted to bring up, that, again, this is all great work. There's a tremendous amount of effort that has gone into a lot of these programs. And now that I'm towards the end of my 6th year on this committee, I've heard multiple presentations over the years about programs that have been introduced at all different levels. So now I'm at the point where I'd really like to see some data and some statistics that show either the great success or maybe more work that needs to be done. Because you still hear of incidences of kids and adults not being nice to each other. So why? What are we missing? What's going on? I think it'd be helpful for us to really look at that. So it'd be helpful to have some of that data. I'd like to see what type of incidences are being reported. Are we seeing any trends between buildings or age ranges? You might make the assumption that it's all social media these days. Well, is there still physical issues that are taking place? Do they still stuff people in lockers at the high school level? I don't know. So I think that would be helpful for a future meeting.
Absolutely.
I'll just, there is discipline data that all public school districts in the Commonwealth have to report. It's publicly available. That gets uploaded in the beginning part of the school year, and certainly ours, like every other public school district, is available. There's a range of categories. We can certainly come back to this point, but that's the type of data that, just for members of the community who might be interested, is certainly available, as a scan across the district. If I may, just on the, well, there might be another question, but I'll just say that one of the things that's really very impressive to me as I think about other districts that I've had the opportunity to serve in is I think this is an amazing structure, if I can use that term, that this is a lot of good work in a very few minutes that has been highlighted here. But this structure that is in place, there's an institutionalization, I think, to this in this district, which is incredible. Some of the things that they highlighted upon is work that's going on, but the promise for taking all of this and continuing is amazing. And I can tell you that there are lots of districts who are still trying to piece this all together, still try to put into place a structure. They might pull together a committee to work on the the BPIP. But there's more to that here, and I say that in looking ahead to the future to tackle some of these many issues. This is a great foundation. It's more than that in place. You get a sense of that, and that you should have great confidence in terms of the various programs and the various initiatives that we need to endure or pursue, so.
That's great. Anyone else have any other questions or comments? Mrs. Burns?
Just a question. Is there a self-assessment tool in place for those initiatives with the administration in each school saying how well, is there like some data method with regards to what we're putting forth to the kids beyond, yes, they know, putting hands on others is a no-no, but is there some, self-assessment that can be gathered in order to propel the focus of the task force in itself with regards to the initiatives and/or PBIS aspects? It's everything in time, but it might be something to consider as to what is working out in which schools and what is missing. And I think, we brought in the collaborative problem thinking, the raw screen program. We have those tools that are now lying dormant. And they were very expensive. We have the trainers here. Those elements I would love to see revitalized, and I think the methodology behind that approach, I think, will only support the work. And I know it's a lot of work, and it is, because it's a change of mindset. But I just think it's a very valuable tool that we have in our toolbox that we don't use anymore. And I know this, you kind of have to break it down in order to build it back up, but I'm hoping that aspect is also included and revitalized as we proceed in being more effective and thinking outside of the box to be so. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. Anyone else? Mr. Rasto?
I just want to tie on a little bit to what Mrs. Burns and Mrs. Broussard said, that it's a lot easier for us to evaluate the impact of our instructional practices and educational practices than the social emotional side, just kind of the nature of it. And so I think that is something that, as we're thinking about these initiatives, that we also have to be trying to think as creatively as we can about how do we evaluate the impact that these initiatives have? Because sometimes things that they seem good when you put them down on paper, and then people think that they're having an impact, and then eventually you find out that, oh, maybe it isn't, or it's something other than what you thought is having a much bigger impact than you expected. And without taking the time to reflect on what those impacts are and what outcomes we're hoping to get from the programs, then we won't know if this is something that we should continue doing, or which particular areas we want to continue focusing our efforts on. Because like so many things, you can't focus on everything. We need to kind of put as much wood behind the arrows that are really going to strike the target and lead to better outcomes.
Mrs. Burns?
Thanks. Thank you so much. This is great to hear and to see it all come together, and the flow chart I think is really helpful. A couple of things about the discipline data. I know it's public, but I think it would be helpful to come back and talk about it as a committee. And also, how many bullying investigations are there? How many are founded? How many aren't? I think it may be somewhere, but I think it would be helpful to do that together and to kind of work through that data as opposed to just reading it and maybe misunderstanding some of it. So I think that would be great to put on a future agenda with your kind of guidance and leadership. And my other piece, you mentioned a couple times about surveying younger students, that we do a lot at the middle and the high school, and this idea of, is there an adult they can go to? And because we do have so many transitions, this idea of relationship mapping. So we may have strong relationship map in the elementary in one place, and then they move to the other one, and then they move on to the middle. And so how are we but how are we bridging, but not just from 5 to 6, but then still people they interacted with in 5th grade, are they still sort of having connections maybe 7th grade? So I wonder if some of that work is being done and what it looks like, how many students feel that there is someone in their current school or maybe another school that they could go to if there were something going on, and how easy is it for them to do some of that. I think with the middle and the west, it's probably, because they're right there, and you will see a ton of middle school students heading in to the west, I think, to connect with either administrators or teachers. And so I just would be so curious to see, do we have any data? Is there anything that we can look at to say, oh, that's interesting, this many students are going there, that's pretty fascinating. Maybe they're feeling a little bit more secure because their former teachers are right there. So I just think it'd be great to look at some of that data together. But thank you so much.
Good, thank you.
That survey piece is actually a part of this plan that we haven't done. So that was actually going to be the next step of this subcommittee, was going to be to create those or research those. because they have not been in place. So but that's an element of the survey that we'll make sure to add to that.
Mrs. Burns?
Dr. Brand, quick question. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey, can you refresh my memory, when are those results available? Is it the fall or spring of next year? Will we know of the results of tomorrow?
They're going to be much quicker because it is electronic, and so the results will, I forget the exact timeline, but I think it's certainly,
It will be sooner than.
it's before the end. Well, no, I can't, I have to double check that.
Okay, no
But
worries.
it's going to be much quicker
fall.
than,
That's what I read, but maybe.
It wouldn't be later than the fall.
The
That
memo-
was
the
what-
memo
yeah.
said the
yeah,
fall.
the fall, I think tentative or early results, the piece about the spring, I think, is what might be coming back to districts. There's something about that, and that may be sort of an unofficial release before the whole, the aggregate of all the districts. I think that's maybe what I'm thinking about.
Thank you.
Sure, Mrs.
The SOS, the signs of suicide, that data's not released on, it's just if there's an issue, the child is spoken to, then the parent, we reach out to
You
the
said the data's
parents.
not released.
Is it
I couldn't-
released? Is not, how do
It's
we
not.
use that?
It
It's
is
just in the
confidential.
moment data.
Yes,
Okay, that's
yes.
what I thought. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No? Great. Thank you very much for your update. I appreciate it. Very helpful information. All right, moving right along. Everybody still with the class? We okay? Nobody's eyes are glazing over yet? Okay. Ms. Peters, thank you very much. Come on up, you're the next contestant.
Well, I don't have a PowerPoint.
That's okay. We have this nice packet in front of us.
Well, thank you for having me. Would you like me just to go through the summary of the changes, or do you want me to start with questions? It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, I think the summary is probably helpful, and then we can certainly open it up to questions from committee members, or if there's anyone in the audience.
Okay, we had some revisions and some additions to some of our department programs. So we did revise our senior internship program. We now call it the Senior Exploration Program because we've added project as well as an internship as an option. That is for this year, so we are continuing it for next year. We did drop from the program the student classroom internship simply because it's really not a choice for a student. It's something that we may offer a student if there's an opportunity. So there's not always an opportunity, so we did take it out as it just isn't something a student can choose, so we just took it out. There are minor revisions in the English department. There is just a revision of the course description for the futuristic fiction and film course. That was taught for the first time this year, I believe. So I think based on the instruction, I think he just decided to just change it a little bit. I don't think it's changed that much, but there is a change in the description. The revision of the title, we have a memoir, nonfiction, and creative essay course. It's a very long title. So we did reduce it to the creative essay, and it was a semester course that Mrs. Mulligan, who teaches the course and created the course, would like to change it or wanted to change it to a full-year course. So we are offering it as a full-year course next year. We have a couple of revisions in the math department, actually really just one. We are going to offer for next year to our freshmen an integrated math 1 course. We will follow it in the following year with an integrated math 2 course. And these 2 years of math will integrate algebra and geometry to be taught over 2 years. It is one of the pathways that is in the frameworks. We did talk about it several years ago. Didn't feel the need at that time to add it, but we do feel that there is a need for it at this time, so we are adding it for next year. In the science department, we are adding an astronomy course. This was a course we had in our program many, many years ago, and when the teacher retired that taught it, it never came back. So it's, we have a teacher that would like to teach it. We're using it hopefully as an alternative to a fourth year of science. Right now, if you do take 4 years of science, usually the fourth year is physics. That's what's offered now as a full year course. So we decided to give another option of astronomy. That's also a full year course. The social studies curriculum, or program, I should say, not really curriculum, but they have added an AP psychology course. We've had many students want to take AP psychology through VHS, so we decided that we would offer it. We also have a full year psych-soc course, and we are replacing that with a full year of psychology. And we are offering sociology at 2 levels, at the CP level and also at the honors level. And we're offering those courses as a half-year course or semester course. We also have 2, well, actually I should say, there's 2 courses that are full-year courses that the teachers would like to separate it into 2 separate semester courses. We have a World Religions and Cultures course, and that is a full-year course. Up until next year, they would like to separate it into a World Religions semester course and then a Cultural Norms, Values, and Taboos course. Those are each semester courses. We also have a Civil War Vietnam course. That's a full-year course that we're also going to separate into 2 separate semester courses. Lincoln and the Civil War will be 1 semester, and America and the Vietnam War will be the 2nd semester or a different semester. In the Performing Arts Department, we are actually replacing our Introduction to Musical Theater course with an American Music course. And the Introduction to Theater Arts course will be separated into, it's a full-year course, it will be separated into 2 semester courses. One will be the Intro to Theater, and the other one will be the Honors Theater, which would follow the Intro to Theater. In the World Language Department, we are offering all our Italian courses at the honors level. We do that with the French, and we have a full honors program for Spanish, so we are working with changing all our Italian courses to be offered at the honors level. There's a slight revision for the course description for Spanish 5, and we are also starting to offer Spanish 1 at the honors level. We offer Spanish 1 only at the CP level now, but we offer all the other Spanish courses, 2, 3, 4, and 5 at both levels, so we are going to add the Spanish 1 honors as well. And we are revising some of our Spanish 5 as not a full-year course. We are looking at giving options for Spanish 5 as semester courses, one for the Seal of Biliteracy as a semester course, and the other as a Film, Art, and Telenovelas course. This was done through a survey. The language department came up with 4 or 5 different semester courses, and through a survey, these are the 2 semester courses that seemed the most popular, so that's why they are offering those. And those are the changes.
Any comments or questions from the committee members? Mr. Bjork, and then...
I think every year this is impressive, but I just would highlight, I'm thrilled that you're adding an AP psychology. I think for years we've been talking about the STEM for the sake of increasing careers in engineering and mathematics, but based on all of our efforts in social emotional issues, there's really a dearth of truly qualified mental health professionals out there, and I think hopefully this will encourage people to go into that field.
I hope so, too.
That's great. Mrs. Burns? And I'll come to this side.
I had a quick question regarding AP classes in general. Knowing that students have to pay for the exam, do you know of are there financial resources or ways for students who family economics may not be able to, because sometimes you have multiple children in high school taking
multiple courses.
AP classes, and that's what we ideally want each child to do. Is there any kind of financial, I don't want to say financial aid, but you know what I'm.
College Board does offer some financial aid for students that are on free and reduced lunch program.
Okay.
And we also will offer what we can
Okay.
through
Great.
our own funding.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ragsdale, and now I'm going to look at this side of the table. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I had just a couple of questions. In the revised world religions course, the description says that there's an emphasis placed on a solid understanding and adherence to of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit on sort of what that means in the context of this course.
I don't think I can probably answer that question sufficiently, but I could get the answer to that. I'm going to assume it just means the freedom to practice religion, but I'm not sure. I really can't answer that, but I will get the answer for you.
And then I had one other question. So the world religions and culture, so the splitting of that into two separate classes. So it looks as though that it's sort of the same content essentially covered, but a splitting of the focus, that one, for one semester course focuses on the religion, the other focuses on the culture. And so it's perhaps more flexibility than just having it as a full year course. For the Civil War, previously the Civil War era course, so that looks like it's being handled differently, that full year Civil War course is being, the scope is being, reduced and the focus narrowed to make room for a new course, which appears to be the Vietnam War course. Is that inaccurate?
Actually, the Civil War course, that's an incorrect title. It is titled, or was titled, Civil War/Vietnam as a full year course. That
Okay,
was
so
the
that-
original title of
All right,
it.
so this is more parallel.
Yes.
That originally it covered the Civil
Yes.
War and Vietnam, and now
Yes.
is being split into
Yeah,
a
that's an error.
semester course.
That should have been Civil War/Vietnam
Okay,
as a full year.
all right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Ms. Peters? And this is the time of year that our high school students are going through their course selection.
Yeah, we're starting.
Yes, we are. All right.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure,
about
Mrs.
the
Bryson.
virtual high school? Is it very popular among the students, or?
Yeah, it is. We have 25 seats available. We usually fill most of them, 25 seats each semester, and we usually fill most of them. We have 21 students taking it now.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you as always. We appreciate the update. Yeah, we do need a motion, I'm sorry, thank you. We are being asked to actually approve this changes on the high school program of studies. So I would ask for a motion to approve. Mrs. Burns, seconded by Mr. Bjork. All those in favor? It looks like that would be unanimous. Thank you. Good catch, thank you. You can see that at the bottom. Okay, I think we've gotten through our new business this evening. Thank you for everybody hanging in there. Public comment. No. Okay, no public comment. Subcommittee reports. I think we are looking for an update from Mrs. Bryson and Mr. Ragsdale, who participate on the Strategic Plan Committee.
Sure.
How would
Can
you
I
like
start?
to-
You want to
Sure,
go ahead?
I'll start with the beginning, and then maybe you can talk about our last meeting.
Okay.
So at our first meeting, we sat with our consultant and a pretty large group. Dr. Brand, how many do we have in that group? I'm sorry.
Approximately 30.
30 or so? It was very well organized, and we spent most of it doing a protocol called Envisioning Our Future. And so we talked about it is 2023, and describe Wilmington Public Schools. So you sort of don't say, where are we now and where would we like to go? It's, we are there. So we're in 2023, and what does it look like? And then you look at 2018. What was it like in 2018? So you're sort of not living in the present, but what would it have been like in 2018? And then the next poster and presentation for the groups was sort of, how did we get there? So it kind of takes on this nice positive, well, you're there too, that's right. And so we're all there. I'm like, everyone's there. Why are we doing that? I'm joking. So I think it was a really healthy, great conversation. When we must have been talking, at least it was a 3-hour meeting that I think at first people were thinking, what are we going to do for 3 hours? And it was very exciting. People were really excited to talk about it. And I think it took a real positive spin to where we see ourselves in 2023, and a starting of a plan as to how we'll arrive there. And our second meeting focused more on looking through the feedback. So there had been some focus groups and some forums, and so we really spent time in groups looking through feedback and then presenting out to the larger group. Do you want to take over?
Sure, and this, the group that's meeting that we were a part of is also has parents on, so there's a bunch of several parent community members. So Mr. Regan, Mr. Ruggiero there as central office staff. There's faculty on it from different schools, as well as, I believe, 4 high school students. So there's a real mix of, school committee, administrators, principals, teachers, and parents and students as well. So it's a very nice mix of community members for that particular group. And so the first meeting was all about that, sort of that visioning exercise. And so we've now had 2 meetings. The third one is going to be this Friday. Between the first and second meeting, a lot of that feedback was kind of gathered and analyzed, and there was also similar visioning exercises that were done at all of the schools. So every single school did a similar visioning exercise, and there were also community visioning exercises. So there were several situations where the community was invited to come and participate in this exercise as well. We also did it at the CPAC meeting, so that feedback was gathered beyond just the initial committee itself, beyond the strategic planning committee. And all of that feedback was synthesized and kind of put into packets for our second meeting, in which the primary goal was to find common themes. So having kind of synthesized all of this feedback in this visioning exercise, what are the common themes that keep coming up again and again and again? So the tables were assigned different packets of feedback. So you might have, the Shawsheen School and one of the community exercises. And then you would, go through and review that together and see where the common threads were. Because especially when you mix the different types of groups, when you have community, faculty, the school level, and you still see similar things coming up, then you really know that you're finding things that are important to people and to the school, the larger school community. And so I think that was also there, very, very consistently, all of the tables, when they would report back to the group, were finding some very strong themes coming through, which feels good, because then you feel that you truly are finding a strong direction for the district to go in. And so that's where we ended up at the end of the second meeting, was with another set of having collected those common themes and common threads, and waiting for them to be synthesized, and then start thinking forward about, where do we actually come up with the initiatives and the actual strategic plans. How do we narrow that down further to a real set of goals that we can start to push forward? And that's where we're going in our next meeting.
Mrs. Burns?
I just had a quick question. So ideally, you're going to, I think it's wonderful. So you're going to take a variety of different things that tease out as being the higher up goals. That's got to be a whole nother process. How many goals are you looking to whittle it down to? Was there a suggested number?
Well, I don't think that there, if I may, I'm sorry, I don't think that there is a specific number, but the intention around this work is to try and keep it manageable. And so I know in my conversation with our consultant, she's pointed me to some of the other plans, and they are just that. This will have, I would suggest, certainly a very different look than our most recent plan that was fairly extensive. And that's more consistent with really her approach and thinking and her work around trying to hone in on something that's manageable. So there's not a number.
Okay.
So I don't know what that might end up being, but it certainly will be consolidated onto a couple of pages. It'll be a streamlined plan. And the effort just going forward, and thank you for the update, is to, from this point forward, to provide some regularity of updates for you as a committee, the community as a whole, and trying very much to get away from, you won't just see a plan before you to consider and approve. But this is starting to take shape now, and it will over the next couple of months, with the intention to hopefully be by June to have a plan before you that you can see come to life, and we'll go from there.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else to add? Anybody else like to ask any questions, comments? No? Do we have any other subcommittee reports tonight? No? Okay, I was just going to give just a brief update on the superintendent evaluation subcommittee. The three of us just need to get together just to figure out how we're going to put it all together. I have taken the template and I have popped Dr. Brand's goals into the template form. I think the three of us just need to look at it and make sure I've got it wordsmithed appropriately and it's going to work for our committee. And when the three of us meet, I think the goal is really just simply to come up with a timeline. Okay, when are the individual evaluations going to be due? And then when are we going to give Dr. Brand the cumulative summary? Okay, and I would expect, don't know for sure yet, but I would expect that that summary would be given on the 24th of April. Okay, that's kind of what we had talked about previously, so. Okay, with that, any correspondence?
It's like a month.
It's going to go by really fast. So get ready. Any correspondence? No? Okay, future dates. Our next school committee meeting is the 27th. Stay tuned, we may be popping in another meeting ahead of that. April 10th would be our first meeting in April. We have some exciting district events coming up. We have Seussical the Musical at the middle school. That's coming up the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of March. The music from that is fabulous, so I can't wait to see what our middle school students do with that. And then, of course, we've already talked about March 28th is our Behavioral Health Task Force. Fair, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. I was reading force. Okay, and with that, we've got one final motion.
Just very
Mr.
quickly,
Yeah.
I think for the Seussical, I think the middle school musical, I believe the Saturday performance is a matinee, not
Okay.
an evening performance.
Good to
So
know.
just a
Okay.
Quick addition.
No, that's,
So don't show up at 7 PM.
12 or 1, I think, right? It's earlier.
You've missed the show if you show up in the evening.
no, it should be a good show. Okay. With that, I think we can ask for one final motion this evening. Anybody want to offer a motion to adjourn? Mr. Burek, thank you. Seconded by Mrs. Burns. Thank you. All those in favor? That looks like that's unanimous. Awesome. Thank you very much to our staff and district leaders who have been sitting here all evening very patiently.